Hello, loves. Welcome to the first creative cozy chat. I have a mug of coffee and a little snack off to the side there, and I hope that you have something warm or cool to sip while we sit down and have a little chat. So, I thought we'd start off our first chat by talking a little bit about creative intentional living, since that is one of the themes that I plan to focus on here. And I thought that I'd just share a few thoughts about what or how I see creative living and what it means to me. Because, with so many of these words and phrases, we all have somewhat different ideas about what we mean by them and um, how we really look at them and apply them in our lives. Oh, by the way, if you can see that little thing there on my table, let me see if I can zoom you in 1 second. That's gonna be something we're going to chat about soon. I That's called a glimmer box, and we're going to be talking about that in one of our upcoming chats. So I filmed some of the process, and I just need to film a few more bits and pieces and put it all together for you. Anyway, creative living. So let's talk a little bit about what creative living is and what it really means to me. So I think that creative living was initially, I'm sure it's been around for much longer, but probably it was popularized by Elizabeth Gilbert. And Elizabeth Gilbert defined creative living as living a life that's driven by curiosity rather than fear. I think that is just so much of what our creative artistic life is like too. We make art driven by curiosity. It's our curiosity that drives us to explore different mediums and try different things. And of course, sometimes our fears come in the way of our own creativity and our own creative process. We can wonder whether what we're doing is good enough, or whether we're just doing too much of the same thing, or whether our art is even important or relevant. And all of those fears can just really hold us back in just so many ways that at the end of the day are just so unnecessary. I think the more we can lead with curiosity, the richer our creative lives and life in general can be. So, when I think about creative living, I think about it as living the best possible life that you can lead. A life that is shaped on your values and beliefs, regardless of how it appears to the outside world. I think it's really about doing things that are important to you, doing things that light you up and that delight you. So it's really about taking the time to consider what you really want to spend your life doing. What do you want to spend your time focusing on? Where do you want to give your attention? All of that is part of living a more creative and a more intentional life. So I really think that in some ways it's about just being as quirky as you can be, and really about questioning societal norms, or the paths that are kind of mapped out for us. Like, you go to school, you go to college, you graduate, you get a job, get married, have children, and that's kind of a pathway that's mapped out. Like, by a certain age you should be married, you should have a house of your own. And not all of those things might be really important to us. um, or there might be other things that are even more important, let's say, than buying a house and tying yourself down to a mortgage. So really knowing and taking the time to connect with yourself and to understand and embrace and accept your quirks, and then to really march ahead, creating and crafting the kind of life that really lights you up, that to be able to do the things that you want to do. And of course, there will be compromises along the way. So, as an example, um, in a little over the last decade or so, art making has become really, really important to me. It is part of my regular creative practice. And now there are voices out there. There are a lot of people, coaches, other artists, things that you see online, that kind of say that if you create art, you should be selling it, or you should be teaching it, or you should be doing something with it. Like you can't just paint it and maybe share it and stick it in a drawer. What are you creating for? And there was a time when I did buy into that idea, and it took me down a path that made me really unhappy until I was able to take the time to sit down and figure out that art making is meaning making for me. So it does not matter to me if my art sells. I'm not creating it to sell. I do create e-courses sometimes because I enjoy doing that. I enjoy putting these little classes together and putting them out. But I never wanted it to be a really big, huge thing. I wanted my art to be for me first. And understanding that and realizing that just opened up so much life force for me, because I now was not paying attention to or getting influenced by, the things that I would see so commonly online, or by the other art entrepreneur types, who would say that you cannot be like, you can be a multi passionate person, but when you're marketing your art, you have to be known for a particular thing. And maybe if you want to create an art business, perhaps that's just really how it works. But when you don't want to, and like I even kind of let that bleed into just simply coming on here on YouTube and sharing, or sharing on Instagram. I wanted it to be niched because I thought that that's how it should be, when that's really not the case. So now opening up my YouTube is a way of really letting all those voices fall out. Like, this is going to be a completely multi passionate space, and I hope you all are going to really enjoy the ride. But I know that sticking to just one kind of thing got terribly boring for me. And that's part of me living a creative and intentional life. So, with that little example, I hope that I can better explain or illustrate what I mean by it to you. I think that's my cat crying at the door. Um, Give me a sec. Okay, I've let him into the room, so we'll see if he'll let me continue to film. But yeah, he's taking a look around the studio. So, when it comes to living a creative, intentional life, it includes things like building the habits and structures that will support your creative practices, that will foster creativity by giving you the spaciousness that you need to let your mind wander, to slow down and savor the small moments, like little belly rubs with your cats, or letting them interrupt your filming session for YouTube, and cooking a delicious meal for your family or just for yourself, putting on some soothing music before you crack open your art journal or you start your writing session. Um, Taking those few extra moments to create a sensual environment, to romanticize some of your practices, I think that just makes it so much more meaningful. And really, meaning is just where so much juice lies. Like, we all are hunting for meaning and a sense of purpose, and I think in a lot of ways they are combined, they are intertwined. And I'm really sorry about my cat. Give me a second. So I really think that the more different that your life is from what is prescribed by the overculture, is the more true and authentic it is. We really don't need to conform to what society expects of us. We don't need to optimize every part of our life, to be productive every moment, or to run on a hamster wheel of busyness. We need slowness and spaciousness and ease and rest. Um, and really some time to process all of the information that we take in, and all the information, like, we have a 24/7 access to information these days, be it news, be it other people's opinions, just be it other people's art and other people's interests. And like, even this video, right, this is information that's flowing your way. And I really think that we need the time to process the ideas that we hear, and to process some of these things that we are exposed to, and really assimilate them and make sense of them, and also see if they make sense for us. Because it's very possible that some of the things that we hear, no matter how well intentioned or how meaningful they are for the person sharing them, they might not work for you in your life stage or in your life circumstances. And so, having that spaciousness and giving ourselves the time to really process everything that we are hearing, and that we're reading and we're taking in and we're absorbing, to be able to process that and then see what we want to integrate in our lives and what we want to leave by the wayside. I think all of that is also part and parcel of really living a very creative and intentional life. I want to read something that I had written down in my journal the other day, and it was, we need to turn off, de-optimize, and be unproductive to make sense of our world. We can't do that if we are pursuing never ending to do lists, or just living an on the go life of constant hustling. And, of course, we have, some of us have jobs, we have families, there are obligations and responsibilities that we need to take care of. We're not all just sitting around on hammocks and sipping pina coladas. That's not what this is about. That's not what creative living is about. But with all of those responsibilities, I think that as women, we it's much easier for us, or we almost default to prioritizing the needs of others, and our own interests and our own needs sometimes tend to take a backseat. And because of that, our creative work, whether that's art or writing or crafting, gardening, whatever that might be, right? Because of that tendency to prioritize everyone else at the expense of ourselves, we can sometimes end up pushing our creative work to the back burner. We can find ways to structure our lives to support the things that we love to do. So, as an example, when I was still working full time, I had routines and rituals that supported my creative practices. I prioritized my art time, and I really carved out and guarded that time that I created for myself every evening to just come to the painty table and paint for a while. It did mean that, I had to let some curiosities slip to the wayside. I had to say no to a few social engagements occasionally, not too often. I'm not advocating that you become a hermit in pursuit of your creativity, but I also didn't need to be going out each and every day or every other day. Like there were certain engagements that were an easy no for me. Uh, when it came to would I rather paint or would I rather go and do whatever that activity was, right? So saying no to certain things, not having enough time for to explore certain curiosities, that was of course the case because we do have limited time. But then again, when you can figure out what is most important to you out of all your interests and all your curiosities, which are the ones that are most pressing, and then really spend some time on those. I think that is truly where intentional creative living comes in. Our greatest creative act is the way that we live our lives. So, the more different and unique that your life is from what is popular, from what is trending, from what is on point, the more engaged you are with your life, with the daily choices and actions that shape your life. The more you follow what interests and intrigues you, regardless of whether or not it makes sense to anyone else, the more true and authentic and ultimately creative and intentional your life is. As I talk about and think about all of this, you would have already noticed that I've already combined creative living and intentional living. I call it intentional creative living. And I also think that there are elements of slow living in it. Slow living really, to my mind, is decoupling from hustle culture. It's decoupling from busyness and busy work and productivity. Um, so there is productivity which is good and healthy and which we all need. And then I think that there is this tech bro productivity which is about optimizing every part of your life and um, just, you know, you know what I mean, right? Where every moment of your life is planned and optimized, and you're like doing a lot of things. And it's just what you see so much, even on YouTube, with a lot of these productivity channels. No one needs that much of productivity in their lives. Nobody needs that much of those many systems and processes to be productive. But there are entire channels that just focus on productivity hacks. And that's what I call really tech bro productivity, which is this whole thing of hustling and optimizing and yeah, that's the way to live. Not, I don't think it is. So when I say slow living or and combine elements of slow living with creative living and intentional living, what I really mean is uncoupling from hustle culture, uncoupling from toxic productivity. And I did actually write an entire article on toxic productivity. So I'm going to link that below because I think I don't have the words right now to actually articulate everything that I've already written down there. So you'll get a better sense of what I mean when I say toxic productivity. So yeah, so just really being curious about your life, about your interests, soaking in what is important to you, making the time for it, being intentional in your choices, just, all of that little juicy stuff. I think that's what really makes for an intentional, creative life. So give yourself permission to dabble, to experiment, to break all the rules, and to create new ones. Hey, my lovelies, I'd really love to hear what creative, intentional living means to you, how you see it, how you define it. So, yeah, let's chat in the comments. I'd really love to hear from you. Until next time, take care, keep creating, and stay curious. Bye.